Hey folks, welcome to the first episode of Ask Yann. I decided to make this show because a lot of people started asking me a lot of questions. So when I thought that not only the people, the individuals that I answer those emails, Facebook messages, Quora messages might benefit from it, but also everybody else out there. So I decided to make the Ask Yann show where I'll ask your questions, whatever that might be it about entrepreneurship, happiness, life in general, or whatever questions you might have. And the first episode today is about reputation, credibility. Maisha actually asked me this question on Quora. So Maisha was wondering how she can improve her credibility and also her reputation as a young writer or a young blogger. And I think there's a few dimensions to take into consideration here. So the first thing is that to leap from answering questions on Quora or posting something on platforms such as Medium, LinkedIn, or whatever it is, that you need to come up with a content story. Like not just randomly answering questions or randomly posting things, but to really come up with a content story. So every great writer or blogger has a content story. So, and the thing is that just being a writer or just being a blogger will not really give you a good reputation or a lot of credibility, because writers are per se people that just write and that don't experience things. So that's some sort of paradox, right? Because as a writer you want to gain credibility or reputation, but at the same time you have to read and write a lot, and that makes you sort of not missing out on life. But a lot of people think that, oh, writers, they don't really experience anything. So that's like the first critical thing. And what I suggest is to really come up with a story. So for example, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to start blogging, write about your experience as an entrepreneur. If you're a kid in India, write about what it's like being a kid in India. If it's being a kid in Africa, the same thing. So to really have a consistent content story, and also that will help you to be a lot more credible, right? So have a content story ready. Don't just randomly write about all sorts of things. I know it sounds kind of strange because I do exactly this. I write about all sorts of different things, but the truth is that I have one overall content story. The overall content story is rethinking your now. And so I write about everything that helps you to rethink your now. Or if you look at other bloggers, like very famous bloggers like James Altucher, his overall topic is, or his overall theme is, I think it's ideas for a world out of balance. So it's really, first of all, the most important thing is to come up with a content story to be able to get the leap from someone who writes about all sorts of different topics to one narrow topic that a lot of people can identify with. And for example, if you go on my blog, the first thing that you'll see is sort of my mission statement. And it also shows you what my content story is all about. So that's the most important thing when you want to increase your credibility and gain people's trust. The second thing is that simply being a writer online will not really help you to gain reputation, because the problem is that a simple website or a simple platform will never ever be able to replace the need of human interaction. And human interaction is the source of trust and credibility. So what I learned myself is that you really need to show up at all sorts of events and show your face, because that's the next step. Because otherwise I might never know, wait a minute, this is this blogger, I've never seen him or her. Is she even what she pretends to be? And a lot of people are not what they pretend to be online, and offline it's a whole different story. So what I realized, what boosted my reputation or my credibility quite a lot, was showing up at all sorts of events, giving talks, holding workshops. And I know it's tough, and that's the reason why 99% of the people don't do it, because getting on stage and writing a blog is still very different. It's still a little bit anonymous, I'd say. So the first thing or the second thing that I do other than that, other than having a content story, is to give talks at events, at workshops, whatever your niche is or your industry. Reach out to people, send them emails. When I started off, I sent, I guess, 40 emails to get in total maybe 10 or 15 talks throughout Europe. And it wasn't any, and it was really about me reaching out to other people. Nobody reached out to me until this day. Barely anyone reaches out. It's usually me reaching out. But what it does, it helps increase your reputation and your credibility. So that was the second thing. Not only being a faceless writer online. The third thing that I realized is that you need to own your own platform. Because there's millions and millions of people that use platforms such as Medium, LinkedIn, Quora to publish their thoughts. But what you're doing there is when you, for example, you post an answer that or something that you publish on LinkedIn or Medium, when you post it to your Facebook profile or send it to your followers, what you're doing is you're directly sending them to your competitors. And the competition on platforms as the ones that I mentioned before is so strong that you cannot possibly win it. So, because what's going to happen is I click on your link, you share it on Facebook, I see, oh wait a minute, there's an article on Medium, I read it, and I was like, okay, I read it, and then there's like 20, 30 other articles that are recommended to me. So then I'll start reading them, and I will never really realize or that you even exist. And it's the same thing when you only publish on Medium and LinkedIn. Even though a lot of people might like or upvote or whatever your content, they will never associate it with you as a person, as you as the writer, and that's very critical. Because what you want to do is you want to stand out with your content and with your name. But platforms you don't own, such as Medium and all the other ones, you don't own anything. You're right out there competing with some of the best writers. So you'll lose more or less your identity. It's just content with content with content, and it doesn't give you the opportunity to build up your own name out there. So what I'd really suggest is that you stop pushing out all of your content on platforms you don't own, and start pushing out your content on platforms you own. For example, make a typepad blog, a WordPress blog, and that should be your number one source where you send followers to. So I don't have anything against all these other platforms. Actually, they're really, really good, and I use them to additionally distribute my content as well. But my main source of brand building is still my typepad blog right now. I distribute all of my content on those other platforms as well, but at the end of it, I direct almost all the time people to my blog, so that they will rate stuff on my own on a platform that I own, to start building up credibility. Because then they have like a small little tab where they can see, oh, about me. Then they will start reading about me. So you have to slowly introduce them to your world if you want to build up credibility as a writer. And the last part is about persistence. A lot of people write me messages and say, oh wow, Yann, this is so inspiring what you're doing, I'm also going to start a blog. So most people start writing a blog, but after 1 week, 2 weeks, max 1 or 2 months, people just stop. People just stop because there's no success, because they don't see any results. But here's the thing, how I see it. Like, you went to school for 20 years, and all you got was a lousy job that pays you $2,000 to maybe $3,000 a month. That was 20 years. And you think that when you build a blog, that you will see results within a few months? Think about it again. Think about how long you went to school, to university, to get your lousy job that pays almost nothing. And that's the way how I see being a writer. Being a writer is more about being in for the long run. There are no shortcuts, and it's really about persistence. It's about constantly publishing and writing content. It's because 99% of the people will stop it, and automatically, the longer you are around, the longer you'll also be around in the future, because the harder it will get. It will get people to kick you out of the entire thing, and people will start taking you a lot more serious. So those are just 4 simple things that I would start considering as a writer if I wanted to build up my credibility or my reputation. So the first thing was come up with an appealing content story. Don't just write about everything. Don't write about the stuff that everybody else is writing about, because like 95% of the content you find online is the same thing over and over again. Come up with your own story. Your own story counts a lot more than you might think. Come up with your own story. Or stories. The third thing, notice the second thing is you should be online and offline at the same time, because I cannot build up a relationship or I cannot build up trust to someone that I've never really seen in real life. So that's the second thing. The third thing is that you should absolutely have your own platform where you send most of your traffic to. There's nothing against using the other platforms to distribute your content, but they should never ever be your main platform. And the last part, the fourth part, is about being persistent, about persistence. Because most of the people will stop, and the only way that you stand out, that people will notice you, is that you're around all the time. I'm doing this now for over 2 years, and I'm barely seeing any results. Will I ever see any results? I have no idea. Maybe, maybe not. But that's the only way to go. And yeah, I guess that's it for today. Should you have any more questions about whatever kind of topic, social media, entrepreneurship, life, blah blah blah, shoot me a mail to yann@girard.com, or simply go on my website YANNGIRARD and head over to the tab Ask Yann, and you can conveniently type in your question, and you might make it on the show then. Alright folks, that's it for today. Let me know what you think about it, if I should continue it, if you think it's not worth it, and yeah, looking forward to your thoughts. Goodbye.